So today we are here with a phenomenal woman, which I also see as my role model, especially in your writing career. I look up to you for that. So, Lorryn, here you are. Thank you for joining us at the People's DNA.
Yeah.
And today we're going to touch on topics such as motherhood and feminism.
Sure.
So let's just start with the first one, motherhood. What's it like for you? How do you find it? Let's just start there.
Okay. Yo, that's actually quite a heavy question, So I became a mother in 2018 at the age of 20. Well, just having turned 28, but my pregnancy was 27. It was a shock pregnancy, it wasn't planned. And all of the emotions that went together with an unplanned pregnancy as a young, unwed mother really shone a light for me on just the unspoken shame that goes along with it. And the social reactions towards you and how you are expected to respond to it.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Obviously, having grown up in a conservative Christian environment, you go through the whole process of the church. You go through the whole thing of not receiving communion. Just the. You know what? One thing I noticed is while I was pregnant, I was actually working in Cape Town at a big insurance company as a research analyst. And there's so many things flooding into my head now. I feel like I need to make notes so that I can go back to everything. But where was I?
At the insurance company.
Yeah, I was working there. And so let me just go back to where my mind went eventually. So the response, even from an environment like that, was number one, my boss telling me, "Oh my God, I'm so glad I'm not in your shoes."
Wow.
Yeah. And when I took off 6 months maternity leave, it was like, how dare you take advantage like that? It's like, I was quite shocked at those things. And then coming back into my family home environment, I was also met with a lot of shame and it basically, what I'm trying to tell you is that becoming an unwed mother is I just remembered the thing, is not socially acceptable at all.
But
right?
what is funny? Sorry that I come
But
in
sorry, let me just go back to the thing I wanted to say when I got
Before you forget again.
before I got all interrupted with the corporate thing. What I noticed in advertising, so I was going through a lot of magazines, and not magazines, we still read magazines, but like on the internet and stuff, and seeing all these like adverts, and even going to the Motherhood expo in Cape Town. Every single woman in the adverts and stuff they literally put a wedding ring on that woman's finger in every one of the adverts. They will not put it there without, they're not trying to perpetuate that kind of. So now you can see how deeply entrenched the idea of being a wed mother is, with the church, going through the whole baptism process, the strafloop, and not, whereas my partner, nobody cares about him at all. He didn't commit a sin, you know what I mean?
He was totally fine.
He can take his communion if he wants to. But me, it was really like that. And even with the baptism classes and stuff, I forced him to participate, and he wanted to participate, but it wasn't a requirement.
Yes, he didn't have to if he didn't want to.
So this is now all just context I'm giving you. I haven't even really gotten to the motherhood experience, but you were going to ask a question.
Yes. It's funny enough that you are now an acceptable age, if I can say it that way. With 27, financially stable, and yet still the shame was thrown to you. Which is also a weird factor for me as well, because sometimes people are arguing about teenage pregnancy, but when you're financially stable and you're a nice age, then for me, then it's fine. I don't see a problem. But now you're telling me all of this.
You see, the thing is, it was never about financial stability or age. It's all about the sacredness of motherhood.
Okay.
And the sacredness of motherhood is that it needs to happen within a very specific circumstances,
Oh
you know.
wow.
And these circumstances are obviously being, married and on all those things. Um, yeah, so I actually ended up going through a whole process of getting engaged and disengaged, and a lot of like dynamics went on there. But essentially, my spirit is one of always kind of like going against the grain and like
Mm.
kind of in protest to, what are you doing to young women out here who are doing the most natural thing that your body could do, which is produce an egg, have it fertilized, and bring people into the world, Why is it that there's so much red tape? You can only have it in such a circumstance, Considering the context we live, but also it goes back to a conservative Christian environment, you know what I mean?
And that's now that I think of it that way, now we can see why some people are actually forced into a marriage based on
Oh yes.
pregnancy.
So it's that, right? So yeah, you expected to get married at that point. So you really experience like like this is very personal, but in my family context, me and my little family, we're not considered a legit family. When couples are discussed and things, we are never mentioned because it's like, yeah, you guys never signed the paperwork, so you don't really,
Oh wow.
you know what I mean? Even if upon close examination, we exemplify all of the things that a family is: a
Yes.
loving two parents, we love each other, we love the child who has a home. None of those things matter when you've had a child out of wedlock, because you will never be considered in this context a normal family,
Just because of a ring in a
because of a ring. And you know what? I always say that the ring itself was a marketing campaign by the De Beers company, It wasn't a thing. It was like, obviously they try to make money, diamonds, making it scarce, telling the men you have to spend like 3 times your
Yes.
salary, and you
'Cause
will
this is an
buy the woman. It's like
exceptional-
modern labola, not white people's labola, but in this sense, colored people's. I'm saying a lot of controversial stuff, but
It
the
is what
audience
it
of
is.
this, it is what it is,
That's what it is.
So yeah,
But that must have been tough though, and I think it falls on to a lot of women. But now my thing is this: why is it always just on the woman then?
you see, in motherhood, I recently, to put this answer of mine in context, I started reading into women who have the audacity to say that they did not want to become mothers. That is not an acceptable thing for any woman to say who is already a mother. It's still kind of okay for a woman to say who's not a mother yet. But once you are a mother and you utter those words, you subject yourself to some serious scrutiny, And one of the things I took from this article is that these women are not saying they don't love their children. They're saying that modern motherhood is the pressures of modern motherhood is not what they signed up for. You know what I mean?
I can imagine that.
So yeah, man. And I myself experienced a lot of trauma in becoming an unwed mother, like, and also a mother having a career, not being married, all those things, man. The support,
pressure.
the pressure,
It's a lot.
and there is such a market now for being a great mommy, and there's a lot of comparison, and even the amount of time that parents spend with their kids now is so much more. Like previously, there was a lot less helicopter parenting, and there's a sense of guilt from mothers spending time on themselves, and where the fathers don't receive that kind of scrutiny and stuff like that. So the whole being of a mother in today's age, I'm not sure, I can't speak for the other women back then. First of all, women used to smoke inches like it's nothing when they were
nobody's
pregnant
business.
back in the day, because it was a marketing campaign where pregnant women would smoke in the adverts, you know what I mean? It's just that the perspective that's been created of what a mother should be today is kind of insane if you consider the market, like, dynamics of women in the workplace, and and having a career for yourself. But the moment that a child comes into the picture, it's like you drive it, you know. You have to kind of like balance everything out, plan things to the T, and those things kind of induce stress. There isn't can I say there is no way for there's no venting platform. Who do you vent to? You know, you have to be you're very blessed if you have a partner that you can vent to, you know, that's understanding, like a metro man that's kind of in touch with his feminine side. You know, that's the fluking. But that's the things you need, you know, because women have committed suicide. These are not the things we talk about, you know, because of the pressures, the aloneness. You don't know what to expect, Ronnie, when you become a mom, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You only know when you are in there, and then you realize, wow, this is hard.
Even if you do how much preparation, still, at the end of the day, it will hit you.
And you start to see your own mother through a very different lens. You start to see the difficulties she went through. You start to deconstruct the notion of this amazing women just want to be mothers. You know, some women were just thrust into a situation that they didn't want to be in, and they have to just deal with it, you know, for the sake of the children and for the sake of their own survival, you know.
Damn.
Yeah.
So that's hard.
It is, and I feel like more women should be able to speak about it, and I'm hoping that if any mother who like watches this and identifies with the things that I'm saying, feels like, oh, it's okay, you know, to talk about these things, because you should be able to talk about it.
You should be. Like when I was working at corporate, I would normally work with mothers, and it's scary to hear them, you know, they're not complaining, but you can see the strain and the stress that they're always in. 24/7, even
24/7.
Even if they're in their work, they are still stressing. So I do take off my hat for mothers, especially single mothers as well.
Single mothers is even like, currently I'm kind of like a single mother because my partner doesn't work in South Africa. He works abroad, so he's only at home half of the year. So I consider myself like a single mother most of the time. But I have help at home, and even that nanny help makes you feel guilty, you know, because just relaxing, you feel guilt, and I never anticipated that. I always thought myself to be kind of like an open-minded person, but when you are subjected to the pressures of motherhood and how society views you, and you need to play a role to be seen as a certain kind of good mother, you feel guilt, like immense.
Like now, I'm always thinking now about these things. Like I'm seeing now, like even if they just wanna, they're not drinking at the club, but they're just checking out the vibe. First thing people notice.
And we've internalized it, right?
Yes.
Also ourselves, it's a self-inflicted.
Yes. You like what are you doing here?
Exactly.
You're not supposed to be here. Even if some mothers
But if
go
you see
out,
a dad in the club,
it's nothing.
Oh no, it's fine. He's just
relaxing.
Shame, man.
Shame. He's been hard.
Shame, yeah. Babysitting his own children. I mean, what the hell is that?
And some people also have that mentality of, say, a mother just wants to go and relax with their friends, and it's like, what are you doing here? Where's your child? And it's always the people that don't have children that give that first punch.
Not only actually, like it's all people. You know, it's people with children, it's people without children. Motherhood, I always say, is at the very core of society. So women need to be good mothers in order for the family to flourish, in order for the family needs to flourish in order for society to flourish, right? So at the very core is the mother. So all the pressure is on being a good mother. And I personally believe that the lack of ability for women to reach out for help about motherhood is the reason why women would throw their babies in the dumpster. You know?
Yeah, because is there even a platform for mothers to go and vent?
You know?
Because this is and how much are classes these days? So how are my middle class in rural areas mothers then doing? Because how much are classes like going for help and whatsoever? They start with bills already on that side. So that is something we need to look at as well.
Sure.
But how do you feel being a mother?
I've come into the role, you know, it's one step at a time, one day at a time. Yeah. the whole breastfeeding experience was something else on its own. You don't
Even.
realize how hard it is. And you know what? Another thing that I need to speak about that you only realize in hindsight is breastfeeding your child is probably the best thing you can do for a baby. But then there's the intervention, especially if like the middle class way of doing things, of these baby clinics and these pediatricians and all these things going.
Yes.
They have set objective metrics that measures the growth of a child. Now I don't know where they base it on, but my child was small, and she didn't fit into the things that they said there, though she was reaching her milestones and all those things. She didn't fit their description of what
A
is.
baby, a
She
healthy
was an
baby.
outlier in the bottom of the how do you call it, the box plot there in the bottom. I cannot even know what is the term. But so, are we still recording?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that induced such stress in me as a new mother, that I struggled to breastfeed. There was no way, I didn't know where to go to ask for help, I ended up having to give up breastfeeding after like 3 months, though I didn't want to, and putting her on the formula, which is a whole other story because that is an industry on its own, right? And feeling such immense shame for not being able to breastfeed and not having any help or knowing where to go to, you know what I mean? And basically at the end of the day, the covert conclusion that these professionals draw is, oh, she must be doing a bad job, she must be doing something wrong. They're not looking at, oh, maybe our metrics are shitty, you know what I mean? So yeah, that is another aspect that needs
Because
to be
I also
addressed.
see in the brown community, like putting your child on formula is like a huge
Yeah.
issue when people don't even know the
The
dynamics
dynamics
behind
of
it
what
all.
goes on there. If I could do it over only, I would not have even gone to these bloody doctors and stuff. I would have continued to breastfeed my baby, and she would have grown into the healthy little child that she is today. You know what I mean? So yeah, that is the worst part is not being able to reach out to anybody for help because it's seen as such a natural thing. You need to be able to
Because
know
you
what
as
to
a
do.
woman should know how to do it.
Let me tell you a story from when I actually was very privileged to give birth in like a private hospital and with the nursing staff, and I had a C-section and everything, and I didn't know, baby. So I'm lying there, I'm having to breastfeed her every couple of hours, and after the third time, so the nurses come and they put the baby on your boob, and then they were like, okay, you need to breastfeed her now. After the third time, I figured they still gonna show you how to do it because it's only your third time of breastfeeding.
Exactly.
Then this nurse says to me, no, you must not do it yourself. Why you can't keep buzzing us. I was like, is this the experience into motherhood that you give women? That is horrible. And that was the first step in me struggling with breastfeeding.
Started
Yeah.
at the hospital.
It started there. There are no real support systems for women to really get into the hang of it. Because you basically sink or swim. And there you sink. Yeah. And then you turn to the professionals. And the professionals are even like, no, you must be the problem, lady. Because your baby's not picking up enough. What are you doing wrong? Which induces more stress into the mother.
Because what are you doing wrong? But you don't
But
even
you
know
don't
who
even
will
know what you're doing wrong because, yeah.
Damn, there's a lot of stress. Again, nothing is at the men's side.
And at the end of the day, you need to consider all the other dynamics of you now being you. There is my problem is the fact that there's so much shame and such little support for the most important thing that a woman will ever go through in her life, in my opinion. I'm not saying all women should become mothers. I actually would advise young women to really, really, really think about whether you want to become a mother, because it is no one warns you against the fit, and I always tell myself that I struggle with the conflict between the fact that you produce an egg every month in order to produce a baby, which means that it should be the most natural thing in the world, but considering the context we live in today, it makes it difficult. You know what I mean? Because we've moved so far from nature, we are no longer in touch with nature
Yes.
anyway, in other aspects of life. So yeah, I don't know what else
So
there
that's
is.
so we're gonna call this the motherhood video.
Yeah, I think there was some good content.
It was.